Hi, the PC Expert Amateur here, and I have a question for you, my currently 17 subscribers. Woohoo! uh, Things have not been going as smoothly as I had hoped in terms of doing testing of fans. I've had lots of setbacks over the past several months, and also, of course, I'm struggling with my own psychology, especially when it comes to video editing. I admit the video editing is very stressful for me. It tends to make me want to avoid doing my videos. Also, taking the data and turning it into charts that are useful is something I'm not particularly good at yet. So I have a lot to learn about that, and that also kind of deters me from putting out videos that I had planned to put out. Um, but that's not the point. That's beside the point. I now have I believe, over 300 fans. I also have, I think, half a dozen AIOs and at least that many air coolers. Um, I'm currently testing the AIO from Thermalright called the Frozen Knot 360 in my computer to see whether tubes up or tubes down work better. I'm also testing in the top mount position, the front mount position. Well, that'd be front for you. And also the side mount position on the right side, of course. And I should have been done by now, but of course there was the holidays. And in addition to that, I discovered that even though the Frozen Knot has 450 millimeter long tubes, my RX 6800 XT graphics card is too long and got in the way. So then I had to spend way more money than it was actually worth to buy an adjustable angle vertical graphics card mount from Easy Do-It-Yourself, Easy DIY Fab. And $60 is a lot for something that basically amounts to a piece of sheet metal that's been shaped and cut and painted and had some neodymium magnets added onto it. It's a lot. If I knew how to do that kind of thing myself, I would have, certainly, because I have plenty of neodymium magnets, and they didn't even do a particularly good job of attaching the neodymium magnets to the frame. So that will allow me to get the tubes to the front of the case and get the tubes to the side of the case so that I can do the tubes down mounting. Of course, there is a consequence, and the consequence is that I now have not 1 dozen, but 2 dozen series of tests to perform. Well, not really 2 dozen, but close. Let's see. For each of the 3 positions physically on my computer, there are, let's see. Well, actually, for the top, it's probably 8 because I don't think it really makes a lot of difference whether the tubes are going to the front of the case or to the rear of the case. But for that one, I'm going to have to, so assuming that front and rear don't matter if it's on the top of the case, then I would say that I have to do intake, I have to do exhaust, and so I have to do it with the graphics card mounted into the motherboard, and I have to do it with the graphics card on the vertical mount. So that for that position, we're talking about, let's see, intake, exhaust. Then I should have a total of 8 tests on the top, since I don't have to switch the tubes around. That's 4 tests with the graphics card in the motherboard and 4 on the mount. So if I decide to do the tubes going to the front and tubes to the back of the top, that means I would do 8 tests. But if I only decide to do it one way, then that would be 4 tests. However, with the side and the front, So obviously for the side and the front, I'm going to have to do 8 tests on each. So that's a total of maximum 32 tests. Yeah, if only the tubes had been 500 millimeters long. If only it had been easy to modify the tubes by adding an extension somehow so I could make them 500 meters long. Or if only my graphics card was shorter. That would also be very, very important. So if you're going to do this test, make sure that your tubes are long enough. And that's the hard part, though, is to actually find an AIO that has tubes that are long enough, because that was actually the longest tubes that I saw of the AIOs that I was considering. And I got AIO from Sama, Aza, Be Quiet, Enermax, Deep Cool, and I think Frozen Knot was the only other one that yeah. And the Frozen Knot had the longest tubes, and the next longest was 410 millimeters, and the shortest I think was the Enermax had 350. So that's way too short. So yeah, it's challenging, and I am again digressing from the question I need to ask you. All right, so I have got all of these fans sitting here. I actually had to buy 2 shelving units to hold all my fans and coolers, and a couple other things, some of which I can, put somewhere else eventually, but I'm running out of space. Setting that aside, uh, what I want to ask you guys is, I've got all these fans sitting here waiting for me to be able to complete all the tests, the airflow and the sound and the bearing tests and everything else. And those are very lengthy tests. Some of them are annoyingly lengthy, and some of them are pretty easy to do. And I was working on completing all the bearing tests, and it was going great. I got a rhythm down to it, and then after doing about half a dozen fans, my fan controller, the Akasa FC Trio, the only one I have that has a display, well, let's just say it stopped working right. I can't use it anymore. It's not trustworthy. So I don't have a way to make sure that my fan bearings are up to the maximum RPM that I expect to see to finish the test, to finish each test. So once again, a setback, and it's just driving me nuts. I've been trying to find a fan controller that would meet all the needs that I have for that particular test. And I emailed, I don't know, like 40, maybe 50 different manufacturers, and none of them have anything even close. The 2 companies that actually bothered to respond and give me suggestions, their suggestions were not even close to what I needed, let alone the bonus thing. They focused more on the bonus stuff than on my requirements. So I'm going to have to lower my expectations for a fan controller and try again. It has to, and I do have a fan controller. The Copal fan, I got lucky. I was at Micro Center and I got an adapter, a power adapter, so that I can actually power it from the wall instead of having to have a SATA cable coming out of my case and plug that in, which is a lot more destructive. Here, let me show you what I mean. So this is my Copal fan. I don't know who actually makes this. I bought it from NLabs. I don't know if they make it or if they got it from somebody else. It can do up to 6 fans at one time, only PWM or DC fans. And there's the SATA connector here. Turn that. Let me show you. So we've got the 6 PWM connectors here, and the 6 controllers are here. and then here's the SATA connector. So when I put the SATA connector in here, it has a tendency to wiggle about because they didn't mount it solidly enough. But now I've got the power adapter, and I plug that right there, and I don't have to worry about that anymore. And instead of being confined to about a foot distance from the outside of the case, because that's how far out the SATA cable goes, I can put this anywhere and test. But there's no display, and I have no clue. This is a sealed unit, so I can touch this and it doesn't get damaged by static electricity. I have no idea how I would possibly add a display to this. This is way outside of my abilities and comfort zone. I mean, if it was just a matter of comfort zone, I would do it. I mean, it's not exactly a terribly expensive fan controller. It's a nice one. Although I did discover that my most powerful fan, which is a Delta fan, actually is too powerful for this connector, for this. It's a Delta server fan, and I got the power about halfway up and then just cut off. It just couldn't handle it, which is, pretty crazy. But yeah, so I can't continue with the fan bearing tests because I'd be flying blind. I wouldn't know whether it had reached the maximum RPMs. Some of the fans I have get up to the maximum RPMs very, very rapidly, and others, some of them take minutes to reach that maximum expected one when they're cold. And when they're warm, then they ramp up pretty quickly. But I need to see that because I need to get a real evaluation based on time as to how good of quality the bearings are. Because a lot of times manufacturers, when they don't want to say, hey, I've got a crappy sleeve bearing in here, and you're gonna get 40 to 50,000 hours out of it before it craps out, they don't tell you that what kind of a bearing it is. They just say it's a long life bearing. That, whenever I say long life bearing, that makes me very nervous. Oh my God, these freaking things always get on my nerves. All right, I'm gonna hide my phone under there so it's not so noisy. Getting back, okay. So that's the problem I have with doing my fan tests. Problems. And I've got a mechanical engineer who volunteered to help me, Tatami Matt on LTT, to make some mounts to hold fans and to hold my tachometer and to mount onto, to connect my anemometer to my wind tunnel. I just have to get them printed out. I wish I had a 3D printer, but I don't. And I don't know how much it would cost to print them out. The way I've got to do it is really obnoxious. It's going to take months probably because there's a free one that I can use at the library. Unfortunately, there's a waiting list to get things printed out, and the size restriction is really bad. So actually he had to cut it up into sections. I'll have to print out each section separately, and then I'll have to glue it all together, hoping that I don't screw it up, because I'm not particularly good at that sort of thing. And I'm going to have to figure out how to use an epoxy without destroying it all, because having to reprint 5 or 6 sections on the cone for the anemometer, just okay. Getting back to the question, because here I have been babbling for 14 minutes now. I can go through and do an initial presentation of every fan that I've got right now, from most of them. There are a small number for which I cannot do anything because I don't have the right adapter to plug it in to my to any of my fan hubs. I've got a couple of them, I think, maybe just one, that doesn't have a plug, and I need a PWM plug for that one. I've got these challenges with certain fans where I don't have any way to plug them in without modifying them by changing the plug. And I don't necessarily have the pinouts, which means that I might do it wrong, and I have to learn how to use a multimeter in order to test them to make sure I don't do it wrong. And that's just a challenge. But for the vast majority of the fans, I can do without doing anything with the anemometer, the tachometer, or anything like that. I could do quick reviews showing you what they look like and how loud they get. And showing you the specifications that I've got for them, which would allow me to fill out my inventory, which also means that every time I do that, I get more information in my inventory, and eventually I'll be able to make my inventory public, because my intention here is my data will be available to the public. So the inventory will give you one place to look at fans. Now, that said, I don't have all the fans in the world, and some of the fans that I've got are very old. I got them from Frozen CPU, and they're just like so old I can't even find data on them on the internet. Like I've got some Cool Jag Everflows, I believe it is. I can't find data on them on the internet. And two of my Deltas out of the three that I've got, I can't find data for them, or very limited data, or contradictory data on some of them. Like one place says one thing, one place says another thing, and it's probably different versions of the same fan. So there are lots of challenges. So do you want me to wait until I can do a full test on every fan like some of the other reviewers do? Or do you want me to do it do two separate types of reviews? One review just presenting it, letting you hear how loud the fan is, and discussing the specifications and stuff like that, and then separately down the line, when I can, producing a video talking about the test results and how it compares to other fans. And I'll use specific fans as my, I guess you could say, benchmark. And since the Noctua NFA 12x25 is such a standard or highly regarded fan, I'll use that for the 120 millimeter fans. I'm not sure what I would use for the 140 millimeter fans, let alone the 180s and 200s and 220s I've got, or the 80s and 90s that I've got, which are very few, which I accidentally got, didn't intentionally get. But yeah, would you like to see? As soon as I can put them out one by one, I'll put them out as soon as they're ready. I won't line them up in my backlog of scheduled videos. I'll just pump them out whenever I have time. Would you like to see that? Two-stage fan comparisons. Or I could even do multiple stage fan comparisons, where I do one series where it's just the basics of the fan, and then another series where we're comparing the results of the bearings, another we're doing sound, another we're doing the speed, the cubic feet per minute, airflow, and so on and so forth. So those are the three options. Continue in the route that I'm going right now, which is a very slow and painful route that I'm able to supplement, not to cover the delays by producing the Choosing Fans series. But I don't know when I'll be able to get to it that way. Or two, do a two-stage for every fan. So the first stage is just the basics, and then the second stage is all the results, which is going to, obviously, again, this part will be later. Or a multi-stage where there's the initial stage, and then, there's the initial stage, and then there's sound, and there's bearings, and there's airflow, and so on and so forth. Those are the three options I'm asking you as my viewers, as my subscribers. What would you like to see? Please, please vote. Thank you so much for your patience and for sticking around this long. I know it's been frustrating because I should have had all this stuff done, but it's partially it's my fault, and partially it's constant technical challenges, having to build my own sound chamber from scratch because I couldn't get anybody to do it at a reasonable price. Yeah, it's just, and my job and my life, it just, yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching. Thanks for supporting me. Please like, subscribe, and share. Have a great day.